The 33 Strategies of War. Book by Robert Greene. Detailed summary. Introduction: War as a social entity. The introduction sets the stage for the book by discussing the concept of war and how it has been a constant throughout human history. Greene argues that war is not just physical combat but a social and psychological phenomenon that can be applied to various aspects of life. Part I: Self-directed warfare. 1. Declare war on your enemies, the polarity strategy. The main idea behind this chapter is that it is important to create a clear and distinct polarity between you and your enemies in order to mobilize your resources and energy to fight them. The chapter begins by stating that war is an inevitable part of human life and that we all have enemies, whether in personal or professional life. The key to winning these wars is to create a clear polarity between you and your enemies. This involves defining yourself and your enemies in oppositional terms, such as good versus evil, us versus them, or right versus wrong. This creates a sense of purpose and direction for your actions. The chapter then goes on to explain that once you have established this polarity, it is important to mobilize your resources and energy to fight your enemies. This means focusing all your attention and efforts on defeating your enemies, rather than on any other distractions. To illustrate the polarity strategy, the chapter provides several historical examples, such as the rivalry between Alexander the Great and Darius III, the conflict between the British and the Boers in South Africa, and the Cold War between the US and the USSR. The chapter also provides practical advice on how to apply the polarity strategy in everyday life, such as creating a clear and simple mission statement for your organization or developing a personal mantra that defines who you are and what you stand for. Overall, the main point of this chapter is that by creating a clear and distinct polarity between you and your enemies, you can mobilize your resources and energy to fight them and ultimately emerge victorious. 2. Do not fight the last war, guerrilla warfare. The main idea behind this chapter is that in order to win a war, you must avoid fighting the last war and adopt a flexible and unpredictable approach to combat, such as guerrilla warfare. The chapter begins by explaining that most people tend to fight wars based on what worked in the past, rather than what is needed in the present. This can lead to catastrophic failures, as demonstrated by historical examples such as the French Army's reliance on static fortifications during World War I and the British Army's adherence to traditional tactics during the American Revolution. The chapter then introduces the concept of guerrilla warfare, which involves using unconventional tactics such as ambushes, raids, and sabotage to disrupt the enemy's operations and demoralize their troops. Guerrilla warfare is characterized by its flexibility and adaptability, as well as its ability to strike at the enemy's weakest points. To illustrate the guerrilla warfare strategy, the chapter provides several historical examples, such as the tactics used by the Viet Cong during the Vietnam War and the American colonists during the Revolutionary War. The chapter also provides practical advice on how to apply the guerrilla warfare strategy in everyday life, such as using surprise and deception to gain an advantage over your competitors and staying flexible and adaptable in the face of changing circumstances. Overall, the main point of this chapter is that by avoiding the mistakes of the past and adopting a flexible and unpredictable approach to combat, such as guerrilla warfare, you can gain an advantage over your enemies and ultimately emerge victorious. 3. Amidst the turmoil of events, do not lose your presence of mind, counterbalance. The main idea behind this chapter is that in the midst of chaotic and unpredictable events, it is important to maintain a sense of balance and rationality in order to make effective decisions. The chapter begins by explaining that in times of crisis or conflict, it is easy to become emotional and reactive, which can lead to poor decision-making and ultimately defeat. The key to success in these situations is to remain calm and rational, and to consider all options before taking action. The chapter then introduces the concept of counterbalance, which involves weighing the pros and cons of any given situation and considering the potential consequences of each course of action. By carefully balancing different factors, you can make informed decisions that are more likely to lead to success. To illustrate the counterbalance strategy, the chapter provides several historical examples, such as the decision-making process of the Roman general Scipio Africanus during the Second Punic War and the balancing act of the American statesman Benjamin Franklin during the Revolutionary War. The chapter also provides practical advice on how to apply the counterbalance strategy in everyday life, such as maintaining a sense of perspective and not becoming overwhelmed by emotions, and considering the potential consequences of your actions before taking them. Overall, the main point of this chapter is that by maintaining a sense of balance and rationality in the midst of chaotic and unpredictable events, and by carefully weighing the pros and cons of any given situation, you can make informed decisions that are more likely to lead to success. 4. Create a sense of urgency and desperation. Death ground strategy. The main idea behind this chapter is that by creating a sense of urgency and desperation, you can motivate yourself and your allies to fight with greater intensity and overcome seemingly insurmountable obstacles. The chapter begins by explaining that in times of crisis or conflict, it is easy to become complacent or demoralized. The key to success in these situations is to create a sense of urgency and desperation, which can energize you and your allies and help you to overcome obstacles that might otherwise seem insurmountable. The chapter then introduces the concept of the death ground strategy, which involves putting yourself and your allies in a position where there is no alternative but to fight with everything you have. By creating a situation where failure is not an option, you can motivate yourself and your allies to fight with greater intensity and determination. To illustrate the death ground strategy, the chapter provides several historical examples, such as the tactics used by the Spartan king Leonidas during the Battle of Thermopylae and the decision of the American colonists to sign the Declaration of Independence, which put them in a position where failure meant certain death. The chapter also provides practical advice on how to apply the death ground strategy in everyday life, such as setting deadlines for yourself and your allies and creating a sense of urgency around important goals. Overall, the main point of this chapter is that by creating a sense of urgency and desperation, and by putting yourself and your allies in a position where there is no alternative but to fight with everything you have, you can overcome seemingly insurmountable obstacles and achieve success. 5. Avoid the snare of groupthink. The command and control strategy. The main idea behind this chapter is that in group situations, it is easy to fall into the trap of groupthink, where members of the group conform to the dominant view and suppress dissenting opinions. The command and control strategy involves maintaining a clear chain of command and avoiding groupthink in order to make better decisions and achieve greater success. The chapter begins by explaining that groupthink is a common problem in many organizations, where members of the group may be afraid to speak out against the dominant view or may simply conform to avoid conflict. This can lead to poor decision-making and can hinder the group's ability to achieve its goals. The chapter then introduces the concept of the command and control strategy, which involves maintaining a clear chain of command and avoiding groupthink by encouraging dissenting opinions and considering all options before making a decision. To illustrate the command and control strategy, the chapter provides several historical examples, such as the decision-making process of the British military commander Field Marshal Montgomery during World War II and the leadership style of the Chinese military strategist Sun Tzu. The chapter also provides practical advice on how to apply the command and control strategy in everyday life, such as fostering an environment of open communication and encouraging dissenting opinions. Overall, the main point of this chapter is that by avoiding groupthink and maintaining a clear chain of command, you can make better decisions and achieve greater success in group situations. The command and control strategy involves encouraging dissenting opinions and considering all options before making a decision, which can help to ensure that the best possible course of action is taken. 6. Segment your forces. The controlled chaos strategy. Segment your forces. The Controlled Chaos Strategy is the 6th chapter of Robert Greene's book, The 33 Strategies of War. The main idea behind this chapter is that by segmenting your forces and creating pockets of controlled chaos, you can confuse and overwhelm your opponents, making it difficult for them to respond effectively. The chapter begins by explaining that in warfare, chaos can be a powerful tool, as it can disrupt the enemy's plans and create opportunities for victory. However, too much chaos can be detrimental, as it can lead to disorganization and confusion among your own forces. The chapter then introduces the concept of the controlled chaos strategy, which involves segmenting your forces and creating pockets of chaos in strategic locations, while maintaining overall control and organization. This can confuse and overwhelm your opponents, making it difficult for them to respond effectively. To illustrate the controlled chaos strategy, the chapter provides several historical examples, such as the tactics used by the Mongol leader Genghis Khan, who would split his forces into smaller units and attack from multiple directions, and the tactics used by the Confederate General Stonewall Jackson during the American Civil War, who would create diversions and feints to confuse the Union forces. The chapter also provides practical advice on how to apply the controlled chaos strategy in everyday life, such as breaking down complex tasks into smaller, manageable parts and using unexpected actions or diversions to confuse opponents. Overall, the main point of this chapter is that by segmenting your forces and creating pockets of controlled chaos, you can confuse and overwhelm your opponents, making it difficult for them to respond effectively. The controlled chaos strategy involves maintaining overall control and organization while creating pockets of chaos in strategic locations, which can disrupt the enemy's plans and create opportunities for victory. 7. Transform your war into a crusade, moral high ground. The main idea behind this chapter is that by framing your actions as a righteous crusade, you can motivate your followers and gain the support of others, even in the face of adversity. The chapter begins by explaining that in war, it is important to have a sense of purpose and a clear mission. However, this is often not enough to motivate people to follow you, particularly if the mission is difficult or unpopular. The chapter then introduces the concept of the moral high ground, which involves framing your actions as a righteous crusade, with a clear moral purpose and a sense of moral superiority. This can motivate your followers and gain the support of others, even in the face of adversity. To illustrate the moral high ground strategy, the chapter provides several historical examples, such as the civil rights movement in the United States, which framed its struggle as a moral crusade for equality and justice, and the terrorist attacks of 9/11, which were framed as a holy war against the perceived evils of the West. The chapter also provides practical advice on how to apply the moral high ground strategy in everyday life, such as framing your actions as a crusade for a just cause and emphasizing the moral purpose behind your actions. Overall, the main point of this chapter is that by framing your actions as a righteous crusade, you can motivate your followers and gain the support of others, even in the face of adversity. The moral high ground strategy involves framing your actions as a crusade for a just cause, with a clear moral purpose and a sense of moral superiority, which can inspire others to follow you and support your cause. 8. Pick your battles carefully, perfect economy. The main idea behind this chapter is that in war, it is important to carefully choose the battles you engage in and to conserve your resources, in order to achieve a perfect economy of effort and resources. The chapter begins by explaining that in war, it is not always necessary or wise to engage in every battle that presents itself. Instead, it is important to pick your battles carefully, focusing on those that are most important and conserving your resources for those battles. The chapter then introduces the concept of perfect economy, which involves achieving maximum results with minimum effort and resources. This requires careful planning, strategic thinking, and a willingness to sacrifice some battles in order to win the most important ones. To illustrate the perfect economy strategy, the chapter provides several historical examples, such as the tactics used by the Greek general Themistocles during the Battle of Salamis, in which he deliberately lured the Persian fleet into a narrow strait where their numerical superiority was nullified. Another example is the British military leader Field Marshal Slim, who focused on defeating the Japanese army in Burma by conserving resources and carefully choosing his battles. The chapter also provides practical advice on how to apply the perfect economy strategy in everyday life, such as learning to recognize the battles that are worth fighting and those that are not, focusing on the most important battles and conserving resources for those battles, and being willing to make sacrifices in order to achieve the most important goals. Overall, the main point of this chapter is that in war and in life, it is important to pick your battles carefully and to conserve your resources in order to achieve maximum results with minimum effort. The perfect economy strategy involves careful planning, strategic thinking, and a willingness to sacrifice some battles in order to win the most important ones. Part 2, Organizational, Team, Warfare. 9. The power of mobility, maneuver warfare. The main idea behind this chapter is that in war, the power of mobility is a key strategy in achieving victory. The chapter begins by explaining that mobility is the ability to move quickly and easily, allowing for the element of surprise and the ability to strike the enemy where they are weakest. This allows for maneuver warfare, which involves using mobility to outmaneuver and outflank the enemy. The chapter then provides historical examples of the power of mobility in war, such as the Mongol leader Genghis Khan, who used his cavalry's mobility to conquer vast territories, and the German general Erwin Rommel, who used his tanks and mobile infantry to outmaneuver Allied forces in North Africa. The chapter also explains how mobility can be used in everyday life, such as in business or personal relationships, by being flexible and adaptable, using speed and surprise to gain advantages, and being able to move quickly to take advantage of opportunities. The chapter provides practical advice on how to use mobility as a strategy, such as focusing on speed and flexibility, being adaptable to changing situations, using surprise and deception to gain advantages, and using maneuver warfare to outflank and outmaneuver opponents. Overall, the main point of this chapter is that mobility is a key strategy in war and in life, and that the power of mobility can be used to gain advantages, outmaneuver opponents, and achieve victory. The chapter provides historical examples and practical advice on how to use mobility as a strategy in everyday life. 10. The strategy of the counterattack: let the fight come to you. The main idea behind this chapter is that in war, the counterattack is a powerful strategy that can turn the tables on an aggressive opponent. The chapter begins by explaining that the counterattack is a strategic response to an opponent's attack. It involves waiting for the enemy to make a move, and then using that move as an opportunity to strike back with greater force and surprise. The chapter provides historical examples of the power of the counterattack, such as the Battle of Alesia, where Julius Caesar used a counterattack to defeat a larger force of Gauls, and the Battle of Agincourt, where Henry V used a counterattack to defeat a larger force of French knights. The chapter also explains how to use the counterattack as a strategy in everyday life, such as in business or personal relationships, by being patient and waiting for the right moment to strike back with greater force and surprise. The chapter provides practical advice on how to use the counterattack as a strategy, such as preparing for the enemy's attack, being patient and waiting for the right moment, using surprise and deception to gain advantages, and striking back with greater force and determination. Overall, the main point of this chapter is that the counterattack is a powerful strategy in war and in life, and that by waiting for the right moment to strike back with greater force and surprise, one can turn the tables on an aggressive opponent and achieve victory. The chapter provides historical examples and practical advice on how to use the counterattack as a strategy in everyday life. 11. The Grand Strategist: Beckoning Fate. The main idea behind this chapter is that great strategists throughout history have been able to beckon fate and use it to their advantage in achieving victory. The chapter begins by explaining that fate is an uncontrollable force that often determines the outcome of wars and battles. However, great strategists are able to anticipate and manipulate the course of events, and even create their own luck by beckoning fate. The chapter provides historical examples of great strategists who beckoned fate and used it to their advantage, such as Alexander the Great, who boldly attacked the Persian Empire and created a new empire of his own, and Napoleon Bonaparte, who seized opportunities and transformed Europe through his military conquests. The chapter also explains how to beckon fate as a strategy in everyday life, by being proactive, taking calculated risks, and being bold and decisive in the face of uncertainty. The chapter provides practical advice on how to beckon fate as a strategy, such as understanding the dynamics of the situation, creating opportunities through preparation and action, being flexible and adaptable, and taking advantage of unexpected events. Overall, the main point of this chapter is that great strategists are able to beckon fate and use it to their advantage in achieving victory. The chapter provides historical examples and practical advice on how to beckon fate as a strategy in everyday life. 12. Rapid, fluid, and adaptable: the Blitzkrieg strategy. The chapter focuses on the military tactic of Blitzkrieg, which is a German term for lightning war. The main idea behind this chapter is that the Blitzkrieg strategy emphasizes speed, surprise, and overwhelming force to achieve victory in warfare. The chapter begins by describing the origins and principles of the Blitzkrieg strategy. The Blitzkrieg strategy was developed in the 1930s by the German army, and it relied on the use of fast-moving armored units and air power to quickly and decisively defeat enemy forces. The chapter then explains how the Blitzkrieg strategy was used by the Germans during World War II, particularly in their invasions of Poland, France, and the Soviet Union. The Blitzkrieg strategy allowed the Germans to quickly overrun their enemies and achieve stunning victories in a short amount of time. The chapter goes on to discuss the key elements of the Blitzkrieg strategy, such as speed, surprise, and overwhelming force. The Blitzkrieg strategy emphasizes the use of fast-moving units to strike at the enemy's weakest points, using surprise and shock to overwhelm the enemy and quickly achieve victory. The chapter also explains how the Blitzkrieg strategy can be applied in everyday life, by emphasizing speed and adaptability in responding to challenges and opportunities. The chapter concludes by emphasizing the importance of being flexible and adaptable in applying the Blitzkrieg strategy, and being able to adjust to changing circumstances in order to achieve victory. Overall, the main point of this chapter is that the Blitzkrieg strategy emphasizes speed, surprise, and overwhelming force to achieve victory in warfare. The chapter provides historical examples and practical advice on how to apply the blitzkrieg strategy in everyday life. 13. Know your enemy, the intelligence strategy. The chapter focuses on the importance of intelligence gathering in warfare and in everyday life, and how understanding your enemy can give you a significant advantage. The main idea of the chapter is that information is power, and by acquiring information about your enemy, you can gain valuable insights into their strengths, weaknesses, and motivations. The chapter begins by discussing the history of intelligence gathering in warfare, and how successful military commanders have always placed a premium on understanding their enemies. The chapter then goes on to provide practical advice on how to apply the intelligence strategy in everyday life. This includes learning about the history and culture of your adversary, analyzing their behavior and communication, and gathering intelligence through various sources. The chapter emphasizes the importance of gathering intelligence from multiple sources, including human intelligence, such as spies and informants, technical intelligence, such as satellite imagery and intercepted communications, and open-source intelligence, such as news reports and social media. The chapter also highlights the importance of analyzing the information gathered, and using it to develop a deep understanding of your adversary's intentions, capabilities, and vulnerabilities. In addition, the chapter provides guidance on how to protect your own information and avoid being exploited by your adversaries. This includes implementing counterintelligence measures to detect and disrupt enemy efforts to gather intelligence, as well as being aware of your own vulnerabilities and taking steps to mitigate them. Overall, the main point of the chapter is that understanding your enemy is crucial to achieving success in warfare and in life. The chapter provides historical examples and practical advice on how to apply the intelligence strategy to gain a strategic advantage over your adversaries. 14. Overwhelm resistance with speed and suddenness, the Blitz. The chapter is based on the military strategy of the Blitzkrieg, which was first used in World War II by the German army to quickly and decisively conquer enemy territories. The main idea of the chapter is that speed and surprise can be used as powerful weapons in warfare and in everyday life, and that the ability to strike quickly and decisively can overwhelm resistance and create an advantage. The chapter begins by describing the key elements of the Blitzkrieg strategy, which include rapid movement, surprise attacks, and a focus on weak points in the enemy's defenses. The chapter then goes on to explore how the Blitzkrieg strategy can be applied to other contexts, such as business, politics, and personal relationships. The chapter provides examples of how the Blitzkrieg strategy has been used successfully in different contexts, such as Amazon's rapid expansion in the e-commerce market, Barack Obama's surprise victory in the 2008 U.S. presidential election, and the use of speed and agility by successful athletes. The chapter also provides practical advice on how to apply the Blitz strategy in everyday life. This includes staying flexible and adaptable, identifying weak points in your opponent's defenses, and striking quickly and decisively when the opportunity arises. The chapter emphasizes the importance of preparation and planning in executing a successful blitz, and warns against overconfidence and complacency. Overall, the main point of the chapter is that speed and suddenness can be used to overwhelm resistance and create an advantage in warfare and in life. The chapter provides historical examples and practical advice on how to apply the Blitzkrieg strategy to gain a strategic advantage over your adversaries. 15. Control the dynamic, forcing the action. The chapter is based on the idea that by controlling the dynamics of a conflict, you can force your opponent to react to your moves, creating a strategic advantage. The main idea of the chapter is that by taking control of the dynamics of a conflict, you can force your opponent to respond to your actions, putting them on the defensive and gaining a strategic advantage. This can be done by changing the tempo of the conflict, setting the agenda, and taking proactive steps to control the situation. The chapter begins by discussing the importance of momentum in warfare and in life, and how it can be used to gain an advantage over your opponent. It then goes on to provide examples of how the dynamic can be controlled in different contexts, such as sports, business, and politics. The chapter provides practical advice on how to apply this strategy, such as setting the agenda, controlling the pace of the conflict, and anticipating your opponent's moves. It also emphasizes the importance of taking proactive steps to control the situation, rather than reacting to your opponent's actions. The chapter highlights the dangers of being reactive, and how it can lead to a loss of momentum and a disadvantage in the conflict. It also warns against overconfidence and complacency, and the need to remain flexible and adaptable in response to changing circumstances. Overall, the main point of the chapter is that by controlling the dynamics of a conflict, you can force your opponent to respond to your moves, gaining a strategic advantage. The chapter provides historical examples and practical advice on how to apply this strategy in different contexts, emphasizing the importance of being proactive, flexible, and adaptable. 16. Hit them where it hurts, the center of gravity. The chapter explains the concept of center of gravity and how it can be used to defeat an opponent by striking at their weakest point. The main idea of the chapter is that every organization or entity has a center of gravity, which is its source of power and strength. By identifying and attacking this center of gravity, one can weaken or even destroy the entire organization. The chapter provides examples of how the center of gravity concept has been used throughout history, such as the American Revolution, where the British Army's center of gravity was its leadership and organization, and by targeting them, the American forces were able to defeat them. Greene provides practical advice on how to identify an opponent's center of gravity, such as analyzing their structure and hierarchy, and their main sources of power and strength. He also discusses the importance of deception and diversion tactics in distracting an opponent from defending their center of gravity. Furthermore, the chapter emphasizes the importance of striking at the enemy's center of gravity with a decisive blow, rather than attacking superficial or peripheral targets. The author provides examples of how this strategy has been applied in both military and business contexts. Overall, the main point of the chapter is that by identifying and attacking an opponent's center of gravity, one can weaken or even defeat them. The chapter provides historical examples and practical advice on how to apply this strategy in different contexts, emphasizing the importance of strategic thinking and decisive action. Part 3. Defensive Warfare. 17. The Perfect Economy of Defensive Warfare, the Fabian Strategy. The chapter describes the Fabian Strategy, which is a defensive approach to warfare that emphasizes patience, flexibility, and the conservation of resources. The main idea of the chapter is that the Fabian strategy is an effective way to fight a stronger opponent by avoiding direct confrontation and instead, engaging in guerrilla tactics, attrition warfare, and psychological warfare. The chapter provides historical examples of the Fabian strategy, including the tactics used by the ancient Roman general Fabius Maximus to defeat the Carthaginian army during the Second Punic War, and the tactics used by the Vietnamese during the Vietnam War. The author emphasizes that the Fabian strategy requires a long-term perspective, as it aims to wear down the enemy over time, rather than achieving quick victories. The strategy also requires adaptability and the ability to improvise in response to changing circumstances. Moreover, the chapter discusses how the Fabian strategy can be applied in different contexts, such as business and politics, by adopting a defensive approach that emphasizes patience and the conservation of resources. Overall, the main point of the chapter is that the Fabian strategy is an effective defensive approach to warfare that emphasizes patience, flexibility, and the conservation of resources. The chapter provides historical examples and practical advice on how to apply this strategy in different contexts, emphasizing the importance of strategic thinking and adaptability. 18. Passive aggression, the non-engagement strategy. The chapter discusses the idea of using non-engagement as a strategy to gain power and control in certain situations. The main idea of the chapter is that sometimes it is more effective to not engage in a conflict, and instead use passive aggression to achieve one's objectives. This strategy involves avoiding direct confrontation, but still exerting influence and control over the situation. The chapter provides historical examples of the non-engagement strategy, such as the tactics used by the Chinese military strategist Sun Tzu, who emphasized the importance of avoiding unnecessary conflict and using intelligence and deception to win battles. Moreover, the chapter discusses the different forms of passive aggression, such as feigning weakness, using delay tactics, and using indirect methods to achieve one's objectives. The author also provides practical advice on how to apply the non-engagement strategy in various contexts, such as business and politics. The author emphasizes that the non-engagement strategy requires careful planning and strategic thinking. It involves understanding the opponent's weaknesses and vulnerabilities and using them to one's advantage. It also requires patience and a long-term perspective, as the strategy aims to gain control over the situation over time, rather than achieving quick victories. Overall, the main point of the chapter is that non-engagement can be an effective strategy in certain situations, allowing one to gain power and control without engaging in direct conflict. The chapter provides historical examples and practical advice on how to apply this strategy in different contexts, emphasizing the importance of strategic thinking and patience. 19. Seem to work for the interests of others while furthering your own, the alliance strategy. The chapter discusses the idea of forming alliances as a strategy to achieve one's objectives, even if it appears to be working for the interests of others. The main idea of the chapter is that forming alliances can be a powerful strategy to achieve one's goals, as it allows one to leverage the strengths and resources of others. The chapter provides historical examples of successful alliances, such as the alliance formed by Julius Caesar and Pompey to defeat their common enemy, the Roman Senate. Moreover, the chapter discusses the different types of alliances, such as formal and informal alliances, and provides practical advice on how to form and maintain successful alliances. The author emphasizes the importance of understanding the motivations and interests of potential allies, as well as the importance of communication and trust in building strong alliances. The author also emphasizes the importance of balancing one's own interests with the interests of one's allies, as successful alliances require a degree of mutual benefit. The author provides examples of how to do this effectively, such as by offering something of value to one's allies or by finding common ground in shared interests. Overall, the main point of the chapter is that forming alliances can be a powerful strategy to achieve one's goals, even if it appears to be working for the interests of others. The chapter provides historical examples and practical advice on how to form and maintain successful alliances, emphasizing the importance of understanding motivations and balancing interests. 20. Lose battles but win the war, grand strategy. This chapter is about the importance of thinking beyond individual battles and focusing on the overall strategy to win the war. The main idea of the chapter is that winning the war is the ultimate goal, and sometimes losing individual battles may be necessary to achieve that goal. The chapter provides historical examples of successful grand strategies, such as the United States strategy during World War II, where they accepted losses in the Pacific to focus on the European front. The chapter discusses the importance of long-term thinking and adapting to changing circumstances to achieve the ultimate goal of winning the war. The author also emphasizes the importance of keeping a clear vision of the ultimate objective in mind, and not becoming too focused on individual battles. Moreover, the chapter discusses the concept of asymmetric warfare, where a weaker opponent can defeat a stronger opponent by using unconventional tactics and strategies. The author provides examples of how asymmetric warfare has been used successfully throughout history, such as the Viet Cong's guerrilla tactics against the United States during the Vietnam War. The author also discusses the importance of choosing battles carefully and strategically, as winning every battle may not be necessary to achieve the ultimate goal. The chapter provides practical advice on how to develop and implement a successful grand strategy, emphasizing the importance of flexibility, adaptability, and long-term thinking. Overall, the main point of the chapter is that winning the war is the ultimate goal, and sometimes losing individual battles may be necessary to achieve that goal. The chapter provides historical examples and practical advice on how to develop and implement a successful grand strategy, emphasizing the importance of flexibility, adaptability, and long-term thinking. 21. Know when to quit, cutting your losses. This is about the importance of knowing when to end a battle or campaign to prevent further damage and loss. He explains that humans have a natural tendency to stick to their decisions, even if they are wrong, due to a sense of sunk cost fallacy. However, in war, this mindset can be deadly. Greene provides historical examples of leaders who ignored the signs of a losing battle and continued fighting, resulting in disastrous consequences for themselves and their armies. He stresses the importance of being objective and analyzing the situation to determine if it is worth continuing the fight or if it is time to retreat and regroup. Additionally, Greene discusses the importance of cutting your losses in non-military situations, such as in business or personal relationships. He argues that the ability to recognize when a project or relationship is no longer feasible and to move on is a crucial skill for success. In conclusion, know when to quit, cutting your losses, emphasizes the importance of being able to recognize when it is time to walk away from a battle or project, rather than continuing to pour resources and effort into a losing cause. 22. Deny them targets, the strategy of the void. The author emphasizes the importance of denying your enemy tangible targets to attack, thus weakening their offensive capabilities and forcing them to expend their resources without achieving their goals. Greene provides historical examples of leaders who successfully employed the strategy of the void, such as the Chinese general Sun Tzu, who advised leaving the enemy with no target to attack by adopting a mobile defense. He also discusses the tactics of medieval castles, which employed a combination of walls, moats, and other obstacles to make it difficult for an attacking army to breach their defenses. The chapter further explores how this strategy can be applied in modern warfare and other domains such as business and personal relationships. By denying the enemy a clear target, a leader can frustrate their attempts to attack and weaken their resolve. Greene also notes that this strategy requires discipline and patience, as the temptation to engage in open combat or to present a clear target may be strong. However, by employing the strategy of the void, a leader can gain a strategic advantage and force the enemy to expend their resources without achieving their goals. In conclusion, deny them targets. The strategy of the void emphasizes the importance of denying the enemy tangible targets to attack and highlights the success of historical leaders who employed this strategy. By understanding and employing this strategy, a leader can weaken the enemy's offensive capabilities and gain a strategic advantage. 23. Weave a seamless blend of fact and fiction. Misperception. The strategy of misperception is all about controlling people's perception of reality by manipulating their beliefs and expectations. This involves creating a seamless blend of fact and fiction, and exploiting the gaps between what people believe and what is actually true. The goal is to create a false impression of events or circumstances, and to make it seem as if certain actions or outcomes are inevitable. One key aspect of this strategy is to target the emotions and desires of the people you are trying to influence, rather than their rational or logical faculties. This can involve using symbols, images, and other forms of nonverbal communication to create powerful associations and stir up strong feelings. By doing so, you can bypass people's critical thinking and appeal directly to their subconscious minds. Another important element of the misperception strategy is to use ambiguity and uncertainty to your advantage. By leaving certain details open to interpretation, you can encourage people to fill in the blanks with their own assumptions and biases. This can make it easier to manipulate their perceptions and influence their behavior. One example of the misperception strategy in action is propaganda, which involves spreading biased or misleading information to influence public opinion. Another example is the use of disinformation in military operations, where false or misleading intelligence is used to deceive enemy forces and gain a strategic advantage. Ultimately, the misperception strategy is a powerful tool for shaping the way people think and act. By carefully controlling people's perceptions of reality, you can gain a significant advantage in any conflict or competition. However, it is also a risky strategy, as it relies on maintaining a delicate balance between truth and falsehood, and can easily backfire if the truth is exposed. Part 4. Offensive Warfare. 24. Take the line of least expectation, the ordinary extraordinary. This chapter focuses on the importance of using surprise and unexpected actions in warfare. The central idea of the chapter is that by doing what your enemy least expects, you can gain a significant advantage and throw them off balance. This can be achieved by presenting yourself as ordinary and unremarkable, while secretly preparing to take bold and unexpected actions. The chapter provides historical examples of leaders who successfully employed this strategy, such as Napoleon Bonaparte, who used surprise tactics to defeat larger armies. It also explores how this strategy can be applied in modern business and political contexts, such as by creating a low-key image to lull competitors into a false sense of security, before making a sudden and aggressive move. The chapter also emphasizes the importance of psychological warfare in this strategy, such as by creating misperceptions and planting false information to distract and confuse the enemy. By creating a seamless blend of fact and fiction, one can manipulate the enemy's perception of reality and gain a tactical advantage. Overall, the chapter argues that taking the line of least expectation requires patience, planning, and the ability to adapt to changing circumstances. By carefully concealing your true intentions and using unexpected actions, you can gain a decisive edge in any conflict. 25. Occupy the moral high ground, the righteous strategy. The main idea of occupy the moral high ground, the righteous strategy, is that by taking a moral stance, a person or group can gain the support and admiration of others, even in the midst of conflict or competition. This strategy is effective because it appeals to the emotions and values of people, and creates a sense of unity and purpose. Some important points from this chapter include: to occupy the moral high ground, one must act in a way that is consistent with their principles and values. This requires a strong sense of self-awareness and a willingness to hold oneself accountable to a higher standard. The righteous strategy is not just about being good or moral, but about using these qualities strategically to gain an advantage in a conflict or competition. It is a way of framing the debate or discussion in a way that favors your position. One way to occupy the moral high ground is to appeal to universal values, such as fairness, justice, or human rights. By doing so, you can gain the support of people who may not share your specific beliefs or interests, but who are drawn to these broader ideals. The righteous strategy is not without its risks, however. It can be seen as sanctimonious or self-righteous, and can backfire if the moral stance is seen as insincere or hypocritical. One of the keys to successfully occupying the moral high ground is to be strategic and flexible in how you apply the strategy. It may not work in every situation, and may need to be adapted or combined with other strategies depending on the context. 26. Deny them the resource, the strategy of the depleted center. The strategy of the depleted center is a tactic to control and manipulate opponents' behavior by creating a perception of scarcity, deprivation, and exhaustion in them. The strategy involves creating the illusion of a lack of resources or options, forcing the opponent to either retreat or overextend themselves. It is a form of psychological warfare that relies on the opponent's fear of running out of resources and losing control. The following are some of the key points of this strategy. Create a perception of scarcity. To use the strategy of the depleted center, you must create a perception of scarcity or a sense of urgency. You can achieve this by highlighting the limited availability of resources, space, or time. Make your opponent feel trapped. Once you have created a perception of scarcity, you can make your opponent feel trapped by limiting their options. The more you restrict their choices, the more they will feel cornered and helpless. Control the flow of resources. The key to the strategy of the depleted center is to control the flow of resources. By controlling the resources, you can dictate the terms of the conflict and force your opponent to react to your moves. Force your opponent to overextend. By creating a perception of scarcity and limiting your opponent's options, you can force them to overextend themselves in an attempt to break free. This can lead to their downfall, as they become vulnerable to attack. Maintain the illusion of scarcity. To maintain the illusion of scarcity, you must be consistent in your actions and words. This will help to reinforce the perception of limited resources and keep your opponent off balance. Take advantage of your opponent's weaknesses. The strategy of the depleted center works best when you can take advantage of your opponent's weaknesses. By understanding their vulnerabilities, you can exploit them and gain the upper hand in the conflict. In summary, the strategy of the depleted center is a tactic that involves creating a perception of scarcity and limiting your opponent's options to control the flow of resources. By forcing your opponent to overextend themselves, you can gain the upper hand and achieve victory. However, it is important to maintain the illusion of scarcity and take advantage of your opponent's weaknesses to make this strategy effective. 27. Maneuver them into weakness, the riposte. The chapter on Maneuver them into weakness, the riposte, describes the importance of observing your enemy's actions and movements to find weak spots in their defenses. The key idea is to use a riposte, a counter-attack made in response to an enemy's attack, to take advantage of their weakness and turn the tide of the battle. Greene stresses that the riposte requires a level of intelligence and patience, and involves waiting for the right moment to strike. The main points of this chapter include: study your enemy. Greene emphasizes that knowing your enemy's strengths and weaknesses is crucial to finding their vulnerable spots. Feign weakness. Appear weaker than you actually are to encourage your enemy to overextend themselves and expose their own weaknesses. Wait for the right moment. Timing is crucial. Wait for your enemy to make a mistake or expose a weakness before attacking. Strike with precision. Make your riposte quick, decisive, and precise to take advantage of your enemy's weakness. Follow up with more attacks. Once you've landed a successful riposte, continue to attack to keep your enemy off balance and prevent them from regaining their footing. Overall, the riposte strategy requires a combination of patience, intelligence, and precision to be executed successfully. By observing your enemy, waiting for the right moment, and striking with precision, you can maneuver them into weakness and gain the upper hand in battle. 28. Negotiate while advancing, diplomatic war. In the chapter, Negotiate While Advancing, Diplomatic War, of the book, The 33 Strategies of War, by Robert Greene, the author explains that negotiation is not just a matter of compromise, but it can also be a powerful weapon in warfare. The strategy involves using diplomacy to achieve one's own goals while at the same time weakening the opponent. According to the author, there are several principles to follow when using this strategy. Keep the initiative. Do not allow the other side to set the terms of the negotiation. Keep them guessing and always be one step ahead. Use timing to your advantage, negotiate when the other side is weak or vulnerable. Use deadlines to create a sense of urgency and pressure. Create leverage, use your strengths to gain an advantage. This can be done through alliances, cutting off resources, or building up your own power. Understand the other side's motives, try to understand the other side's goals and motivations, and use that knowledge to your advantage. Be patient and persistent. Negotiation can take time, so be patient and do not give up easily. Keep pushing for what you want, but be willing to compromise when necessary. The author also provides several examples from history where this strategy was used successfully. For instance, during the Peloponnesian War, the Athenians used diplomacy to weaken their enemies while strengthening their own position. In another example, Napoleon used diplomacy to split his enemies and gain an advantage in battle. The key takeaway from this strategy is that negotiation can be a powerful tool in warfare. By using diplomacy, one can achieve their goals while weakening their opponent, and it is essential to keep the initiative, use timing to your advantage, create leverage, understand the other side's motives, and be patient and persistent. 29. Know how to end things. Exit strategy. The main idea revolves around the importance of planning for the endgame in any situation, especially in warfare. The chapter highlights the fact that often in war, people get so caught up in the battle that they forget to plan for the aftermath, and this can lead to disastrous consequences. Therefore, it is essential to have an exit strategy in place, which will help you to withdraw gracefully from a losing position or end a conflict on favorable terms. The chapter starts by emphasizing the importance of knowing when to quit and recognizing that fighting a losing battle is a waste of resources and can be detrimental to one's ultimate goals. Greene explains that sometimes the best way to win is to walk away and regroup for a future opportunity. The chapter then moves on to discuss the various elements of an exit strategy, such as knowing your objectives and limitations, assessing your enemy's position, and being prepared to make compromises. Greene stresses the importance of being flexible and adaptable, as well as having a clear understanding of the consequences of your actions. Greene also discusses the psychology of endings and how people tend to remember the final moments of a conflict more than anything else. Therefore, it is crucial to plan a graceful exit that leaves a positive impression on others and ensures that you achieve your long-term goals. Throughout the chapter, Greene provides several historical examples of successful and unsuccessful exit strategies, such as Napoleon's retreat from Moscow and the United States' withdrawal from Vietnam. He also highlights the importance of understanding the context of the conflict and the culture of the people involved in order to plan an effective exit strategy. Overall, the chapter emphasizes the importance of being proactive and thinking ahead when it comes to ending a conflict. By having a well-planned exit strategy in place, you can minimize the damage to your reputation and resources and ensure that you are in a strong position for future opportunities. 30. Weave a seamless web. The alliance strategy. Main idea of this topic: the alliance strategy involves building a network of allies and associates to support you in achieving your goals. By cultivating relationships and connections with those who share your interests, you can expand your resources and influence, while also undermining your enemies. The power of alliances. Alliances have been used throughout history to achieve military, political, and economic goals. They can be formal or informal, but in either case, they provide support, resources, and connections that can be crucial to success. Choosing allies. It is important to choose allies who share your goals and values, and who can offer something of value in return. Allies can come from a variety of sources, including family, friends, business partners, and even rivals. Building trust. In order for alliances to be effective, there must be a foundation of trust and mutual respect. This can be achieved through honesty, reliability, and consistency in your actions. Expanding your network. To increase your influence and resources, it is important to constantly seek out new allies and cultivate new relationships. This can be done through networking, socializing, and building a reputation as someone who is trustworthy and dependable. Undermining your enemies. By building a network of allies, you can also undermine your enemies by cutting off their support and isolating them. This can be done through subtle tactics such as spreading rumors, sowing dissension, and turning people against them. The dangers of alliances. While alliances can be powerful, they also come with risks. Allies can become liabilities if they are untrustworthy or if their interests diverge from yours. It is important to constantly reassess your alliances and be willing to cut ties if necessary. Overall, the alliance strategy is about building a network of support and influence that can help you achieve your goals while also undermining your enemies. By carefully choosing your allies, building trust, and constantly expanding your network, you can increase your power and influence in any situation. Part V, Unconventional, Dirty, Warfare. 31. Learn how to fight forever, the immortal strategy. In this chapter, Greene focuses on the idea of creating a lasting legacy through strategic thinking and action. The main idea of this chapter is that a successful leader does not simply seek to win battles or wars, but to create a lasting impact on the world. This requires a strategic mindset that goes beyond short-term goals and focuses on long-term vision. Greene offers several key strategies for achieving this type of lasting success, including: cultivate a sense of purpose. Leaders who are driven by a sense of purpose are more likely to be successful in the long term. They are able to withstand setbacks and continue moving forward because they are motivated by something greater than themselves. Invest in your people. Great leaders know that they cannot achieve success alone. They invest in their people and build strong teams that can carry on their legacy even after they are gone. Embrace change. The world is constantly changing, and great leaders must be able to adapt to new circumstances. This requires a willingness to take risks and make bold decisions, even in the face of uncertainty. Create a compelling narrative. The most successful leaders are able to tell a compelling story that inspires others to join them in their mission. This requires a deep understanding of human psychology and the ability to communicate effectively. Build a culture of innovation. Great leaders are always looking for new ways to push the boundaries and achieve more. They create a culture of innovation that encourages experimentation and rewards creativity. Overall, the immortal strategy is about creating a legacy that will endure long after you are gone. By thinking strategically and taking a long-term view, you can achieve lasting success and leave a mark on the world that will never be forgotten. 32. How to create a cult-like following, the fractal strategy. The fractal strategy emphasizes the importance of creating a cult-like following for a leader or an organization. The word fractal is used to describe the pattern of repetition and self-similarity that occurs at every level of a system, from the smallest to the largest. The main idea of the fractal strategy is to create a sense of community and belonging among followers by using repetition, symbols, and rituals. By doing so, leaders can create a sense of identity and purpose among their followers, making them more loyal and committed to the cause. Some important points to consider when using the fractal strategy include: repetition. Repeating key phrases, symbols, and rituals can create a sense of unity and purpose among followers. This repetition can help to reinforce the leader's message and create a sense of familiarity and comfort for followers. Symbols. Leaders can use symbols to create a sense of identity and purpose for their followers. These symbols can be used to represent the group or the leader, and can help to reinforce the group's message and values. Rituals. Rituals can be used to create a sense of community and belonging among followers. By participating in rituals together, followers can bond and feel connected to one another and to the group. Exclusivity. Creating a sense of exclusivity can make followers feel special and privileged, which can make them more loyal and committed to the cause. This can be achieved by limiting membership to the group or by creating a sense of hierarchy within the group. Emotional appeal. Creating an emotional connection with followers can help to strengthen their commitment to the cause. Leaders can use emotional appeals, such as stories or personal anecdotes, to create a sense of connection and empathy with followers. Overall, the fractal strategy emphasizes the importance of creating a sense of community and belonging among followers. By using repetition, symbols, and rituals, leaders can create a strong sense of identity and purpose for their followers, making them more loyal and committed to the cause. 33. Orchestrating the wave of controversy, the death ground strategy. In this chapter, the author describes the death ground strategy as a means of creating a sense of urgency and desperation to inspire your troops to fight fiercely. The strategy gets its name from the idea that when soldiers are backed into a corner, facing certain death if they lose, they will fight with everything they have. The death ground strategy involves creating a situation where there is no other option but to fight. It involves creating a sense of desperation and urgency that inspires people to take action. This strategy has been used throughout history by leaders such as Napoleon Bonaparte, who often put his troops in seemingly impossible situations to inspire them to fight harder. The key to the death ground strategy is to make sure that your troops understand the stakes. They need to know that there is no other option but to fight and that the consequences of failure are dire. By doing this, you can inspire your troops to fight with everything they have and overcome seemingly impossible odds. One way to create the death ground strategy is to deliberately choose a battleground that is disadvantageous to your troops. This forces them to fight harder and more strategically to overcome the odds. Another way is to create a sense of desperation by limiting your resources or options. This can create a sense of urgency and inspire your troops to fight harder to overcome the obstacles in their path. The death ground strategy can be a powerful tool for motivating your troops and inspiring them to fight with everything they have. However, it should be used carefully and with caution, as it can also create a sense of desperation that can lead to poor decision-making and reckless behavior. It's important to balance the sense of urgency and desperation with a clear strategy and a solid plan of action. Conclusion: The Elegant and Final War. In the conclusion of The 33 Strategies of War, Greene emphasizes that war is a necessary part of life, and understanding its strategies is crucial for success in any field. He emphasizes that the strategies presented in the book are not meant to promote violence or aggression but rather to promote a strategic mindset that can be applied to various aspects of life, including business, politics, and personal relationships. Greene also highlights the importance of balance in war and life. He warns against becoming too obsessed with winning, as this can lead to blind spots and missed opportunities. He encourages readers to remain adaptable, to never become complacent, and to always be aware of the shifting power dynamics around them. Finally, Greene emphasizes the importance of personal responsibility and taking control of one's own life. He encourages readers to develop their own strategic mindset and to take action towards their goals, rather than waiting for opportunities to present themselves. Overall, The 33 Strategies of War provides a comprehensive guide to understanding and utilizing the strategies of war in various aspects of life.